right, EKG interpretation. This EKG is from M417, May 16th, 2023. All right, so estimation of rate. Ooh, I can't help myself but using the medium box method. It's not always that common that you have QRS complexes fall right on the line for you. So you find the QRS complex that falls right on the line, you count the number of medium boxes, and it's 300, 150, 100, 75. That's our estimation of rate, and the computer reads it at 78, essentially the same. Now I do validate and recognize that if it's an irregular rhythm, that method won't work as effectively as an estimate. It'll depend on where you measure those. So in the setting of an irregular rhythm, I encourage you to use the method of counting the big boxes. 6 big boxes equals 6 seconds. Count the QRS complexes therein. So if you use the medium box method, recognize irregular rhythms, or if you catch it on a PVC or something like that, it's going to throw that method off. But for this EKG, we see it's a regular rhythm. Every P wave seems to have a nice QRS following, and the PR interval is essentially normal appearing. It's measured by the computer at 0.2, so it's a little bit prominent, but not greater than 0.22, so kind of borderline there. Axis, QRS axis, isoelectric method. I will say that it looks like it's equally above and below in lead 3. So we remember that's minus 30, 30. That would put our QRS axis at 30. Interval we talked about, QRS duration looks normal, QTC looks normal, PR we said it's a little bit on the borderline, but it's 0.2, it's read as normal by the machine. Rate rhythm axis interval, hypertrophy, no striking evidence of left ventricular hypertrophy evident on this EKG. And now ischemia and infarct. Let's dive right into that. All right, so we dive in. I circled the elevations in red and the depressions in blue. So you see you've got ST segment elevation clearly notable in lead 3. In lead 2, you can see it. It's a little bit subtle. Might want to magnify it, but you can see it's elevated there too. As you can see, it's elevated in AVF as well. And so if you wanted to compare with the measurements down here, you can see there it's more than a millimeter in 2 and 3, and more than a millimeter of elevation in AVF. And now the depressions there, you can see is depressed in AVL. And then curiously, you can see it's a little bit depressed there in V2 and V3 as well. So let's take a look there. V2, V3 is more than a millimeter of depression. So again, I think that's like wrapping around posteriorly, an inferior with posterior extension. And then what do we say? L. Yeah, L is right on the 1 millimeter depression there. And as I looked, like I was tempted to call Roman numeral 1 depressed based on this beat right here. But then I could see I almost got fooled because the baseline seems to wander a little bit. It doesn't convincingly see depression in each of the leads. So anyway, it could have some depression in 1 that would go with lateral depression in L. But what we have here is an ST segment elevation MI, inferior infarct with posterior extension, sinus rhythm. And we'll pause here and take a look at the computer reading for comparison. There you go. Computer's reading it as ST segment elevation MI with elevation inferiorly, posterior extension. And you can see the rate and interval and QRS axis estimates that we had were accurate as well. So that's EKG for M417 on May 16, 2023.